All right, welcome to the first version of At Home Notes. We are going to open up Unit 3, which is all about cells, um, with this beautiful picture of a cell. What I'd like you to do right now is think about what is this cell. Do you know? Do you remember? Okay, if you recognize any terms like mitochondria, nucleus, cytoplasm, lysosome, ribosome, chloroplast. Okay, you're in pretty good shape. If not, well, you got a little bit of studying to do, but that's totally okay. So let's get started. First thing, we started talking about atoms. Okay, so I think it's cut off a little bit here. Oh, sorry. Talking about atoms right here. And the atom is the most basic unit of life. Okay, it's the smallest, over here it says the smallest unit of an element. It is composed of electrons. Hopefully you remember that the electrons are these little dots here, okay, that are in the outer shell. It is composed of the nucleus with protons and neutrons. Okay, so we talked about those, and then we spent a lot of time talking about molecules. We started talking about water, and we talked about organic macromolecules. Okay, a molecule, in case you need help remembering, is the union of two or more atoms of the same or different element. So we had H2O, okay, 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. And then we had the organic macromolecules. That was a bunch of carbon, bunch of hydrogen, oxygen, and then we had some nitrogen and the proteins and in the nucleic acids and some phosphorus in there as well. So, that was last unit. Yay, we're done with that. But we are going to need to talk about cells. Cells are the next unit. They are the smallest structural and functional unit of all living things. So I'd like you to take a moment and draw a comparison between a cell and an atom. Both of them are basic building blocks, okay, but an atom's the very smallest that you can get. All it is, proton, neutrons, electrons. Okay, a cell is the smallest building block of life that can perform all the functions for life. Okay, so we will get more into that as we move on, but you need to know that the cell is the smallest structural and functional unit of all living things. Okay, next. So, learning targets. First, we're going to start off talking about a theory and a law. You need to know what the difference is between a scientific theory and a law. Then we're going to start talking about the cell theory. So, theory versus law. What the heck? Okay. First thing you need to know is a scientific law. That's what we're going to start with. It is a description of some observed pattern in nature. It's something that we see happen, and it's just describing it. Okay, a scientific law is based off of hypotheses. For some reason, a lot of you guys think that a hypothesis can become a theory, and then a theory can become a law. That is not the way it goes. Scientific laws actually come from hypotheses just like theories do. Okay? Many of them do. However, it is many hypotheses, okay, that have lots of evidence that will support this observed pattern in nature. So an example is Newton's laws of motion. We see if we drop an apple, it falls to the ground. Okay? Newton's laws of motion are describing some pattern that we see. It's an example of a law. All right, next we need to talk about a theory. Okay, a theory in everyday language is not the same thing as a theory in science. Please don't get those two confused. They are very different. Okay, so a theory in everyday language is usually, you could replace the word theory with a guess in your everyday language. Okay, so an example, I have a theory that ice cream makes you smarter because it makes you happier, and when you're happier, you do better. That's my guess, is that ice cream makes you smarter, and I think you should all test it out, unless you're lactose intolerant. Don't do that. Okay, it's just a guess. Now, a theory, a scientific theory, is a very well substantiated explanation of some aspect of the natural world that is acquired through the scientific method, okay, and it is repeatedly tested, over and 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 over again. Okay, it is not just some idea or not just some guess. Okay, it is something that over a long period of time there have been many, many, many tests, and those results support this explanation of something that we see in the world. So, an example of this is cell theory. Okay, so cell theory, before we get to the actual theory, what I'd like to do is talk about a few of the people in the history of cell theory. So first is Robert Hooke. Okay, he was an English dude that lived in around the 1600s. Okay, he examined very thin slices of cork. So question, before we get any further, what kind of cell do you think he was looking at? It was a plant! Good job! Okay, cork is the tough outer skin of trees. Okay, that would definitely explain why he saw a bunch of roughly rectangular shapes when he looked under the microscope. Okay, the shapes he saw reminded him of the stark rooms that monks lived in that were called cells. Okay? Sorry. Anyways, so guess what? That's where we got the name cells from. In science, science would never be the same. So if you want a way to remember it, maybe remember Captain Hook covered his hook with the cork he studied under his scope. Okay, so next we have Anton van Leeuwenhoek. I have no idea how you really say that, but he was a Dutch lens grinder. Actually, he was a merchant, a cloth merchant. Okay, he was working on lenses to try to be able to study cloth even closer, and he studied all kinds of things. He studied things like plaque on your teeth, gross. Okay, he studied blood, studied all sorts of different things, and he realized, okay, that there were these different kinds of cells that he called animalcules. Nope, he really did. So, anyways, that was his contribution, is that it's not just in plants that we see these roughly rectangular shapes. Okay, but we also see this different shape in everything. Everything had these different little shapes. Okay, these basic building blocks. Okay, next, look at all of these people. So, first one that we will talk about is Schleiden. Okay, in 1883, he studied several different plants, and he made the claim that all plants are made of cells. Then we have Schwann, a year later, who looked at several different animals, decided the same thing. All animals made of cells. That should be easy because Schwann sounds like swan. A swan is an animal. Schleiden, I got nothing for you. Oh, sorry, let me go back. Virchow, he, in 1855, so he's, almost 15 years later, says that cells only come from other cells. And that is because before his time, people thought that cells just appeared out of thin air. It was called spontaneous generation, I think. It's just, they appeared out of nowhere. Cells just magically appeared. Virchow actually was able to see some different stages of a cell dividing, and hence came to the conclusion that cells come from other cells. So there you go. There's your history. Now we're going to get to the actual cell theory. So the first part of the cell theory is that all living things, plants, animals, bacteria, all of it are made up of cells. Okay. Second part, cells are the basic structural and functional unit of life. And the last part, which I don't know why it has a 1. Sorry, that should be a 3. The last part is cells only come from pre-existing cells. So, learning check. I would like you, at this point, I'll probably have to pause it, take a look at the notes. What I'd like you to do is to compare and contrast theories, scientific theories, and laws. I want you to make a table or a chart, whichever is easiest for you, that has similarities on one side, differences on the other, and go through and tell me what is similar between a theory and a law, like where do they come from, things like that, and then tell me what is so different about a scientific theory and everyday word of theory. And then I would also like you, it says, what is a cell theory? I want you to tell me what the 3 parts are to cell theory. Okay? Then please also feel free to check out these resources. There's a great explanation on Life Science about law versus theory. And then there's a really, really great video that, well, it's not amazing, okay, but it does do a very good job of giving you some more history of the individuals we talked about and how we got to the cell theory. All right, so that concludes the note lecture section of the first part of Unit 3. Congratulations. You can replay it as much as you want. You need to be prepared. Oh, the slideshow. Nope. You need to be prepared to take a quiz on this. On the quiz, I will ask you things about the history, okay, who discovered what, and I will ask you about the 3 parts of the cell theory. You also do need to understand that very first slide, I guess technically it was the second slide, where we talked about the cells being the most basic unit that can carry on the functions of life. Okay? All right. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.